Does the wet field or rain in any way impact your practice plan?
Nope. Told the guys make sure they have the right cleats, and I mean we've got to get used to practicing in some less than ideal weather. So it'll be a good experience for everybody. Hopefully.
It is Green Bay.
It is Green Bay.
You gonna keep it easy with Darnell Savage this week for a couple days yet?
Yeah, I wouldn't anticipate him practicing at all this week.
Coach, you may or may not have been aware your quarterback was on a podcast talking about doing a drug. That's technically illegal in the NFL. Are you worried about any consequences from the NFL towards Aaron regarding that situation?
Yeah, I really haven't given him much thought at all.
You've talked on a number of occasions so far in this training camp about wanting to get that run defense better. From what I know, it's early, haven't been in pads that long, but from what you can sense, have they taken that to heart? Have you seen some progress in that area? I imagine you're looking forward to that Friday, but
Yeah, like everything's a double-edged sword, right? So, just like we've talked all throughout camp, when one side of the ball is doing really well, the other side's not living up to the standards. So I think there's been some great moments on both sides of the ball, both in the run game and in the pass game. And ultimately, it comes down to we'll get a better indication of where we are, at least with certain units in this next game.
Matt, when you look at
With the installs all in, do you start going into more, special situations, offensively, defensively now at this point in camp? Or?
Not necessarily. I think a lot of it, there's so much volume, and typically when you install, whatever install you're on, that's the emphasis for the day. So now you kind of like circle back to some of the earlier installs, but you're still always kind of focused on some of that situational ball. I mean, that's a big part of the game.
Now, will Jordan start on whatever night that is in San Francisco, Friday night?
Yes, he will.
Aaron Rodgers reiterated last week that in practice, he sees so much more in terms of the defensive line, the defensive backs disguising than he would see in the preseason. Is that true?
Yeah, I think our defense is doing a nice job. I think there's a comfort level there. These guys have been in the system for a year, and certainly a lot of our defensive coaches have been here for more than 1 year. And the more comfortable and confident that in your responsibilities, then I think you can play kind of the game within the game, where you can disguise a little bit more and are really intentional about making certain looks, start off looking the same, but then are different.
With the preseason as a whole, has there been any decision on whether or not Aaron's going to get any reps in this preseason?
Not up to this point.
When do you expect to make that decision?
We'll probably look at it after New Orleans.
along those lines, Matt, would you?
So don't ask me for a couple weeks. Thanks.
I don't have to ask you again.
Along those lines, Matt, would you put him out there behind the offensive line with the uncertainty that you've got there?
Yeah, I think absolutely we would. I mean, we still have confidence in those guys. Those guys are going to have to play, and we would just be very particular about what plays we're calling. We're not going to have just open edges and 7-step drops that take a long time to develop. So we'll just be super intentional about what we call, which we are in every instance usually, anyways.
Sticking with the O-line, where are you at right tackle with Zach and Royce? I assume it's a wide open competition, but is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even played a preseason game yet, so I think you could argue every position up front is open for battle.
How have you thought Royce has done?
Some good moments and some not so good moments. It's just been inconsistent, I would say. But he is a guy that we have a lot of confidence in terms of he's played a lot of ball for us. And like I mentioned the other day, he's going up against a pretty good front. So there's going to be times that the defense is going to get the better of him.
Matt, when you look at the areas on offense where maybe you kind of slid back compared to the year before, like early down efficiency or red zone efficiency, now that you get your installs in, is there much you can do in camp to try and improve there, or is that simply stuff you have to do with game planning and execution?
Yeah, I think it's just, it speaks more to that. I think when you're talking situational ball, especially the red zone, it is very game plan specific. Now, granted, we have a foundation that's been built, and hopefully you don't have to deviate from that too much, because there's nothing like getting, all those reps. You don't want them to go to waste, and you don't want to just be practicing plays that you're not going to ever call. So, but it is pretty specific each and every game, and that's one thing that you don't get a true appreciation for in training camp. Is a lot of times you aren't game planning your defense. You're putting in your system, and just like the defense isn't game planning the offense. So there's going to be things that you wouldn't necessarily do against if we were playing the same style of defense, or vice versa, the defense playing the offense. But that's just part of training camp.
Two questions. On a hot day during camp, does the training staff ever give you GPS workload updates on how players are doing? And have you considered any night practices during camp besides family night?
Yeah, great questions. I would say that typically, unless we were out there for about 2.5 hours, which we rarely do, typically there's not too much of a concern. We kind of talk about, in terms of the player loads, prior to going out to practice. We know when it's going to be a heavy day or a light day. Now, if we have a light day scheduled and it starts to creep up into a moderate to heavy day, that's when I typically get alerted to that. So, and then as far as the night practices go, I think there's something to just getting in a routine of when you practice, and that's not something I'm overly concerned about. And, we get 3 more opportunities to play night games. So, no, I'd rather keep the routine than, deviate and have just random practices, whether it's in the morning or in the evening.